If there's any feeling in my life that I probably never will forget, it's going to be the summer of 2012. Because this was when I inherited my sister's iPod Touch. Now, I was 12 years old and she was getting a fancy new iPhone, so I basically was getting the crappy old hand-me-down. Now, it wasn't anything fancy, and this was in 2012, so the devices weren't really that great, but I was so excited to get my first ever smart device. I was finally going to be able to play all of the cool games from the App Store and download all of the popular songs that all the other kids were listening to. And when my sister gave me her iPod, it still had a ton of music from her old library in there, so I was going through it and listening to a ton of stuff I've never heard before. Eminem, Lil Wayne, T.I., I was hearing all of this crazy new rap music. But there was one album I listened to that was unlike anything that I've ever heard before. Listening to it, the feeling was indescribable. I didn't know if I liked it or if I hated it. I knew I just couldn't stop listening to it. The songs brought all of these complex emotions out of me that I've never felt before. Listening to the music, I felt super heartbroken, and I didn't even have a girlfriend at the time. This album completely changed my life, and to this day, I still listen to it. And ladies and gentlemen, that album is My Beautiful Dark Twisted Fantasy by Kanye West. The song Runaway is easily one of the most beautiful songs of all time. That song got me through a lot of breakups and a lot of unrequited love. The guitar solo on Devil in a New Dress always makes me feel like a badass whenever I really need some confidence. And who can forget that outro on Lost in the World, where honestly, it's just a really good song to listen to when you're really just lost in the world. It's just such a beautiful album. And fun fact, this was actually the very first vinyl album that I ever bought. I can't rip the shirt. Because here's the thing, I am a Kanye fan, or at least I used to be, because I am also a Jewish man, and honestly, I am sick of the shit. I got a lot of shit to say for this, so sit the fuck down. We're not doing any stupid dramatic music or whatever, I'm giving this to you raw, no condom, no lube, no nothing. So just shut the fuck up and listen. Now, Kanye saying wild shit isn't really new to any of us. We're all pretty damn aware of it, whether we like it or not. We're very aware of the very strong opinions that he has at times, and a lot of the outbursts that he often unleashes upon us. And we didn't necessarily like it, we always tolerated it because the music was always pretty good. But as of lately, it's become not so tolerable. It went from celebrity drama to straight up supporting genocidal dictators. And as of lately, it started to genuinely inspire a lot of hate movements. And honestly, I just can't tolerate it anymore. I was always a person who liked to try and separate the art from the artist, but I can't really do that in good faith anymore because now I've seen what doing that has basically encouraged him to do. The thing is, Kanye has been like this for a long time. And I don't mean crazy, I mean straight up being anti-Semitic and wanting Jews to die. The hints have been there for quite a long time, but we didn't really see them because they were always overshadowed by Kanye's art and all of his other antics. I'm basically going to break down how he's always gotten away with this and how essentially he's going to continue getting away with this. Because unfortunately, he will get away with it again. Now, I know it's going to be a long-ass video, so get a meal ready or something because we're in for a big one. With that being said, let's cut the bullshit and get right into it. Now, when I say Kanye has been as controversial as fuck since the beginning of his career, I mean it. This goes back over 20 years ago back in 2004, so let's start there. Now, considering Kanye is literally one of the biggest selling artists of all time, it's actually pretty hard to believe that he had a hard time getting a record deal back in the day. This was because Kanye did not really fit the popular rapper image that was big at the time. What really sold records were rappers that were super jacked and had these large chains and rapped about gangster shit, meanwhile Kanye was rocking polo shirts and rapping about dropping out of college. He didn't exactly fit in. But Kanye was a really good beat maker, and he had some pretty big songs with people like Jay-Z. So he basically told the labels, hey, if you want me to keep making beats, and you have to let me make a rap album. The label reluctantly agreed, and eventually he would make The College Dropout, which sold 441,000 copies its first week, so he proved them wrong. The album alone already landed him a nomination and the Best New Artist for the American Music Awards in 2004. He genuinely believed that he was locked in as the winner with such a critically acclaimed and commercially successful album. But he would end up losing to country singer Gretchen Wilson. He was so pissed that he stormed out of the music awards and was quoted saying, I was the best new artist this year. I was definitely robbed, and I refuse to give any politically correct bullshit-ass comment. I was the best new artist this year. This also came from the frustration of losing the VMAs that year, and also on top of the fact that he was not picked as the cover for Vibe magazine. He was not hesitant to rant about this in interviews. And the media made Kanye seem pretty entitled. He had one good album, and now all of a sudden he thought that he deserved the world. But he would earn the public's respect by issuing a public apology.
I want to apologize to all my role models, my father, Ernie Barnes, Oprah Winfrey, Michael Jordan, all of the black people that had to stand up. Denzel Washington, who had to sit in that Grammy seat and take it so many years.
But in his first year alone, Kanye already had this reputation for wilding out. And Kanye would get redeemed the next year in the 2005 Grammys when he was nominated in 10 categories and won 3 awards. And it was there that he delivered his iconic speech.
Everybody asked me the question. They wanted to know, what kind? I know he's gonna wild out and he's gonna do something crazy. Everybody wanted to know what I would do if I didn't win. I guess we'll never know.
Notice how in the speech Kanye even recognized at the time that he already has this wild reputation? And this really set the tone for 2005 because Kanye would get worse and worse at each award show. And this year was kind of like one of the very few years where he was controversial in the good way. You see, in 2005, Kanye was one of the celebrity guest hosts that was chosen for a concert for hurricane relief. It was a benefit concert for the victims of Hurricane Katrina. And on a live program with millions of people watching, Kanye said this famous line.
And subtle, but in even many ways more profoundly devastating is the lasting damage to the survivors' will to rebuild and remain in the area. The destruction of the spirit of the people of southern Louisiana and Mississippi may end up being the most tragic loss of all.
George Bush doesn't care about black people.
And at the time, this was pretty shocking. I mean, look at Mike Myers' face. They had to quickly switch to Chris Tucker because of just how off-script it was. Kanye at the time felt like black victims of the hurricane were not treated nearly as well as white victims of the hurricane. And there aren't many of that celebrities that would really use this opportunity to really voice out their opinions like that. And over time, people respected Kanye for this. This clip kind of tends to trend every now and then because it's such a big difference to his current political beliefs. And that same year, Kanye would even speak up about how he feels there's a lot of homophobia in hip-hop. A thing that is very common, but not many rappers speak about.
Everybody in hip-hop discriminates against gay people. To me, like, that's one of the standards of hip-hop, is to be like, yo, you fake, you gay. Matter of fact, the exact opposite word of hip-hop, I think, is gay. Like, yo, you play a record and it's like whack, that's gay, dog. You know, if it's good, that's that hip-hop right there. You see what I'm saying? It's like the exact opposite. So it's like me speaking for my entire culture, or me looking at my rappers out there, hip-hoppers discriminate against gay people.
But at the time when he made the comments about George Bush, he did get a little bit of criticism because there didn't seem to be a lot of base or actual points for it. Some people thought that he was kind of just saying it for the sake of saying it. George Bush even responded himself to the statements.
And I didn't appreciate it then, and I don't appreciate it now. It's one thing to say, you know, I don't appreciate the way he's handled his business. It's another thing to say this man's a racist. I resent it. It's not true. And it was one of the most disgusting moments of my presidency.
And this was also the same year that Kanye dropped his album Late Registration, which sold 860,000 copies, which was nearly double of what The College Dropout sold. Huge songs like Gold Digger and Touch the Sky were dominating the radio. This album was filled with some of Kanye's most conscious and provocative lyrics yet, while also incorporating huge elements of jazz and using these fancy orchestras. This made Kanye be taken seriously as a rapper, getting some real praise. Critics said that this album basically made his first one look like a demo. And with all this success, it started to get to Kanye's head pretty quickly, because the very next year, Kanye would be on the cover of Rolling Stone wearing a crown of thorns, clearly depicting himself as Jesus. And the headline of this cover, deadass, was The Passion of Kanye West. This was the start of the correlation between Kanye's music getting better while also having a very increased God complex, while also getting more and more controversial because he was basically starting to get away with it. And this would really show in 2006 with the start of Kanye's horrible streak with award shows. And I think you know where this is eventually gonna go. Now, it was in 2006 where Kanye's Touch the Sky was nominated for Best Video Award at the MTVs. It was this crazy video where Kanye had Pamela Anderson. It was doing all these Evel Knievel type stunts. It was sure to win, but he lost to Justin vs. Simeon's video for We Are Your Friends. Kanye absolutely lost it and literally went on stage to let everyone know just how pissed he was.
Oh, Kanye, you won already, you won already. That's all good, man. We gotta share the wealth, but this video cost $1 million, fam. I had Pam Anderson. I'm jumping across canyons and now you're gonna have to share. Oh, hell. Oh. Hey, if I don't win, the award show loses credibility.
Kanye didn't even actually watch the video. It's a pretty dick move to just go on stage and basically denounce someone's award when you didn't even watch their fucking video. Thankfully for Kanye, the segment did not air live and was shown at the after program, so not that many people saw it. And Kanye even later admitted in an interview that he was pretty drunk.
And I had a little sippy, you know, and I'm just chilling. Getting a little bit lippy. Yeah.
But regardless, this was a pretty bad move for Kanye because now he's just kind of starting to look like an asshole. And he was so close to ruining one of the most important connections of his career. You see, the manager of Justin vs. Simeon was also the same guy who managed Daft Punk. And at the time, Kanye was preparing to release his song Stronger, which was gonna be on his album Graduation. This song took him like months to make. And if you know this song, then you know it samples Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger by Daft Punk. So in order for Kanye to drop the song, he was gonna have to get that sample cleared. And at first, Daft Punk's manager was reluctant because of the incident. But after Kanye delivered a very sincere apology to him on the phone, the manager agreed. The song would hit #1 on Billboard and was one of Kanye's most successful songs to date, going diamond. It was the second single for Graduation, which was his very highly anticipated album. And when the song dropped, it was everywhere, in the clubs, at the store, at the restaurants. It was very futuristic and funky. And when Graduation dropped, it destroyed Kanye's previous record, selling over 1 million copies its first week. And half of those were literally just in the first day. 500,000 copies in one fucking day. That's crazy. This album is considered a classic, and many people consider it their favorite Kanye album. It's the album that people use as an excuse for all of his crazy shit nowadays. But he made Graduation, oh my god. The album literally sounded like it was from the future with all these crazy elements of techno. It had some of the most genius sampling that has ever been done in hip-hop. The album was nothing short of genius. It really elevated Kanye to an entirely different level of mainstream that he never expected. And it almost did not happen because of one single mishap. You'd think that Kanye would realize this and maybe learn from it by calming down, but no, because shit was gonna get so much worse from here. Kanye only felt more and more invincible because he was getting away with these stunts now pretty regularly. The things that would destroy careers, Kanye was sliding by easily. And with that came so much more entitlement. At the 2007 VMAs, Kanye genuinely believed that he was going to be picked as the opener for the award show, but Britney Spears was picked over him. He was already pretty pissed, but what completely set him off was the fact that he was nominated in 5 categories, but didn't win a single one. He completely lost his shit and had a ginormous tantrum backstage at the VMAs.
Man, that's 2 years in a row, man. Get off this man. I love this nigga, but man, goddamn, man. Give a chance, man. Give a black man a chance. I'm trying hard, man. I got the #1 record, man. I'm trying, man. I don't give a chance, man.
2008 was where Kanye's aggression and ego went completely loose. He's calling himself the Michael Jackson of hip-hop and how he can't be stopped because he feels like he can't be stopped. But then, Kanye got hit with the unexpected news of his mother, Donda West, passing away. Kanye's mom was his biggest supporter and fan. She was one of the very few people who truly understood him. So when Kanye lost his mom, he felt more lost and lonely than ever, and what really made things worse was the cancellation of his engagement with his fiancée, Alex Pfeiffer. Kanye was at a very dark turning point and completely scrapped plans for his next album and made something that no one expected. In a span of only 3 weeks, Kanye made the project 808s and Heartbreak. It was far different from anything that he ever made as a rapper because it wasn't even a rap album, it was a pop album. The album was filled with all these sad, eccentric songs that Kanye sang over with very heavy autotune to really let out his pain. It was a true reflection of Kanye's state of mind at the time, and initially people did not like this album. People felt like he was selling out to the trendy pop songs of that time and did not like this change of genre. Kanye was not a fan of the backlash, quite literally storming out of interviews anytime he got any criticism for it. He just felt like people didn't understand his genius. But over time, this album did age pretty well. It was actually the album that inspired a whole new generation of artists that completely took over the mainstream today, like Travis Scott, Drake, Lil Uzi Vert, Juice WRLD, and so many more. It once again proved that Kanye was innovative. But the death of Kanye's mom led him into a very dark spiral. At the end of the year, Kanye was charged with attacking paparazzi who were trying to take pictures of him outside of the LAX airport. The footage went very viral because of TMZ, and Kanye was charged with 3 misdemeanors. They were later dropped, and this kind of was forgotten about, and this eventually led to one of the most infamous events in TV history in 2009. Surprisingly, Kanye was invited back to the 2009 VMAs that year, and at the time, Kanye was coping with the death of his mom with very excessive drinking. He pulled up to the VMAs with a bottle of Hennessy where he was aggressively taking swigs of it and even passing out shots to other people. Why they let him in with the bottle of Hennessy even after all of his previous incidents, I have no idea. In hindsight, this was such a bad move. Like, seriously, looking back at it, it's like, how did they let this happen? Now, Taylor was nominated for the Best Female Music Video Award for her song You Belong to Me, in the same category as Beyonce's Single Ladies. It was pretty expected that Beyonce would win this award, but unexpectedly, Taylor actually got the dub. And from here, I think you know what happens. Kanye was booed on stage, scolded by the audience, and eventually was taken outside of the award show by security. This event was much more controversial and got way more coverage than any Kanye controversy before. For one, this event was aired live as it happened, so everyone saw it in real time. This was also when Twitter was starting to become a thing, and the day after this event, there were 1.3 million tweets about this event, which even today is like a shit ton. Celebrities all online were calling Kanye a huge dickhead, and even the president of the United States called Kanye West a jackass.
The young lady seems like a perfectly nice person. She's getting her award. What's he doing?
Why would he do that?
He's a jackass.
All the outbursts Kanye had yet, this was easily the worst one. Taylor was this young, innocent girl who made all of these really sweet country songs about love, and Kanye just completely shat all over her.
I immediately knew in this situation that it was wrong and it wasn't a spectacle or just, you know, it's actually someone's emotions, you know, that I stepped on, and it was rude, period. And, you know, I'd like to be able to apologize to her in person, and, you know, I wanted to.
Let me ask something. I was fortunate enough to meet your mom and talk with your mom a number of years ago. What do you think she would have said about this? Would she be disappointed in this? Would she give you a lecture?
Yeah.
The media made Kanye seem like such a huge villain, and this time he wasn't gonna get away with it so easily. Kanye tried to apologize in a blog, but people just were not buying it. The controversy was so bad that he had to cancel his upcoming tour with Lady Gaga. The next year, he would even get booed off stage for a charity event. A charity event! Kanye knew that some simple apology wasn't gonna work. It was gonna take a lot more than that. And so Kanye would spend the next year in Hawaii working on his biggest album yet. An album that had such a meticulous process that Kanye would never actually sleep the entire time. He would just simply take power naps while recording it. The stakes were higher with this album, so Kanye knew that if he wanted to win the people back, he was gonna have to make this his magnum opus. Otherwise, his career was basically done for. The album cost $3 million to make, and Kanye quite literally had the entire music industry on this album. Like, almost any rapper that you can think of was on this project in some type of way. And upon release, this album sold nearly 500,000 copies in its first week. The album completely won over the public, just like Kanye planned. It was a commercial success and was critically acclaimed. Critics would go on to list this album as one of the greatest albums ever made, not just in hip-hop, but in general. Like, people don't really talk about the best albums ever without mentioning this in some type of way. Like, to say it made history is an understatement. This album completely cemented Kanye as one of the greatest artists of all time and allowed him to move past the controversy. Essentially, he got away with it again. And it was at this point that Kanye realized that he could be as controversial as possible and basically just get away with it as long as he made great music. He literally just got away with one of the most outrageous TV moments in history, something that would definitely destroy many people's careers, and it really just did not affect him. At this point, Kanye didn't think, but now he knew that he was a god. And we basically just saw this continue for nearly half a decade. For several years, Kanye would continuously have these outbursts, these wild rants, and all of these dramatic moments, and every single time it just got brushed over. Nothing too crazy, just a lot of celebrity gossip bullshit. But the fans were tolerant of this because it always gave them great albums like Watch the Throne, Cruel Summer, and Yeezus. No one really cared about any of this wild crap that he was doing because essentially it always gave them great music in return. Everyone was just so used to it by now. So much so that Kanye's first ever signs of anti-Semitism were completely overseen. Because that's basically what happened in 2013. On The Breakfast Club, Kanye made a remark about how black people don't have the same connections as Jewish people, kind of feeding into Jewish stereotypes. People want to say Obama can't make these moves or he's not executing. That's because he ain't got those connections. Black people don't have the same level of connections as Jewish people. This comment basically fed into the stereotype that like all Jewish people are automatically born into the Illuminati and have all these crazy connections and basically control the media. And if it is true that all Jews are in the Illuminati, well, I didn't get my invite. Kanye's got some pretty big backlash from the ADL at this time, calling it anti-Semitic. Kanye would take his statement back and apologize. Well, sort of. He did take it back, but he basically added how he wasn't really sure how this was an insult. I thought I was giving a compliment, but if anything, it came off more ignorant. I don't know how being told you have money is an insult. Granted, this isn't like the most anti-Semitic thing ever, and there is a genuine chance that maybe he didn't actually mean it like that. Looking back now, I think we sort of know what he means by that. And this incident didn't really get that much press at the time because, again, the music was overshadowing everything. Overall, from 2009 to 2014, Kanye kept a decently clean slate. But that sort of ended around 2015 when he did what he did best by going crazy at award shows. At the 2015 Grammy Awards, he basically did almost exactly what he did to Taylor, but this time to Beck. Beck had just won the award for Album of the Year, and just like last time, Kanye thought it should have gone to Beyonce. And so people watched in horror as Kanye was gearing up to walk on stage to essentially take over the awards show, just like last time. But thankfully, he stopped himself short last second. People thought it was some sort of joke, but in post-interviews, Kanye let people know that he was not joking and that Beck should have given his award to Beyonce. Kanye said that Beck needs to respect artistry, but kind of just like the 2006 awards, Kanye also did not listen to Beck's album. In the most ironic way, it was actually when Kanye had dinner with Taylor Swift that he finally heard the album and completely changed his mind. The other day, I went to dinner, sat down with Taylor Swift, and ironically, they were playing the Beck album. Maybe they did it on purpose so I could finally hear it, but I was listening and I was like, man, this is kind of good. I ain't gonna lie. And then Kanye took back everything he said about Beck. And of course, he got away with it again. And the main reason was because all this was really just celebrity gossip bullshit. It wasn't too serious or really had too many repercussions on his career because it really wasn't that deep. He seemed impulsive, but it's not like as if he got too involved with politics or talked about real problems. It just made some really good headlines for TMZ. No one was like really that offended by like what he was doing. But it was in 2016 where Kanye started to really break that barrier because now he was starting to say really outlandish things that went into a completely different territory, specifically on Twitter. Now, Kanye already had a pretty big reputation for being pretty sporadic on Twitter. Like, it was really more for just saying random things. But the first time he started to actually get into some hot water was when he tweeted that Bill Cosby was innocent. Now, at the time, Bill Cosby was facing a lot of issues for sexually assaulting women. A lot of allegations, and they were pretty gross. So for Kanye just to go on Twitter and casually defend Bill Cosby for doing all this crazy shit left a really bad taste in people's mouth. Now, this was 2 days before Kanye's very highly anticipated album, The Life of Pablo. This was a very sporadic and crazy album rollout that had a lot of different moving pieces. So some people probably thought it was just for publicity, and some people just really oversaw it. But the thing was that there was a line on the album that actually kind of was defending Bill. Do anybody feel bad for Bill Cosby? Did he forget the names just like Steve Harvey? This line references to when Steve Harvey forgot the names of one of the women at the Miss Universe pageant. So maybe he was joking or was actually serious, but it didn't seem like he was joking. But regardless of whatever he meant, it wasn't really talked about that much. Because there was another lyric that a lot more people were focused on, and that was the Taylor Swift line. I still feel like Taylor might owe me sex. I made that bitch famous. This was a lot more controversy because he was essentially dissing Taylor Swift and taking credit for all of her fame because of the 2009 incident that got him so much hate in the first place. There was so much drama with this line, and it made all the Swifties hate him forever, and I'm not gonna get too deep into it, but it caused a lot of drama, alright? But regardless, this was completely overshadowed because The Life of Pablo was one of Kanye's most successful albums to date. It basically helped him break into a whole new generation of rap fans that weren't really familiar with his previous controversies, so they really only knew the music, not the drama. But that year ended with something very different that would forever foreshadow Kanye's career. During a St. Pablo tour, Kanye went on one of his wildest rants yet, but something about this rant was a lot more different. He accused Drake of rigging the radio, he started calling out Jay-Z and Beyonce, and he also was expressing his support for Trump. This rant was so much different than anything he's done before because something just seemed so off. Like, he went a lot further with this one than any other rant he's ever done before. The audience completely booed him, and Kanye just straight up ended the concert early. 2 years later, it was revealed that he was actually hospitalized after this and was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, but we'll get into that. This was one of Kanye's last dramatic moments for quite a while because for most of 2017, he was really silent, which is not something you see every day. Now, he would randomly come back to Twitter in 2018 by posting these very cryptic tweets. Sometimes you have to get rid of everything. This confused a lot of fans because it was just very unclear what he was talking about, but it was that same month that Kanye officially came out as a Trump supporter. He posted a picture of himself wearing a MAGA hat and said this: "You don't have to agree with Trump, but the mob can't make me not love him. We are both dragon energy. He is my brother. I love everyone. I don't agree with everything anyone does. That's what makes us individuals, and we have the right to independent thought." Trump would even repost this tweet thanking Kanye for the support, and this got memed a lot, but for the most part, this got a lot of backlash from fans and fellow celebrities everywhere. It just seemed very hypocritical and confusing. Kanye was very well known for voicing his outrage against racism and was a very big supporter of Obama. Now he was openly supporting a president that was very affiliated with being racist. It just didn't really make a lot of sense, and people did not like it. Now, some people did defend him, like his wife and fellow celebrities like Chance the Rapper, but a lot of other people like Lana Del Rey, Janelle Monáe, John Legend, they were not for this. This made headlines everywhere, and Kanye would even go to TMZ directly to make one of the wildest statements of all time.
When you hear about slavery for 400 years, that sounds like a choice. Like, you was there for 400 years and it's all of y'all?
Saying slavery was a choice is probably one of the most out-of-pocket things that Kanye or even any celebrity ever has said. Obviously, as you can imagine, people did not like this. Of course, I know that slaves did not get shackled and put on a boat by free will. My point is for us to have stayed in that position even though the numbers were on our side means that we were mentally enslaved. The reason why I brought up the 400 years point is that we can't be mentally imprisoned for another 400 years. We need free thought now. Even the statement was an example of free thought. It was just an idea. Once again, I am being attacked for presenting new ideas. This was the turning point for lots of Kanye fans and collaborators. This time it seemed like Kanye was attacking his own people and they weren't standing it. He was supporting a controversial leader. He was saying that slavery was a choice. A lot of people had enough of this shit. But around this time, Kanye also revealed about his struggle with bipolar disorder. He revealed that he was diagnosed back in 2016 and was given medication for it, hence why he was so silent in 2017. But now he was off the medication and now he was really letting loose. Kanye would later paint out much of the struggles of his mental illness in his next album, Ye, which was part of this 5-album series. The albums in this series was Kids See Ghosts with Kid Cudi, Nas's album, Pusha T's album, and Teyana Taylor's album. And as usual, his album got praises. He was really detailing the inner battle with himself. Kanye really started to open the discussion of mental illness and really started to make fans really understand why he was acting like this. And while some fans were understanding, many people did not see it as an excuse. Now, eventually Kanye would announce on Twitter that he was staying away from politics and eventually also apologized for his comments on slavery.
I don't know if I properly apologize for how that slave comment made people feel, so I want to take this moment right now to say that I'm sorry for hurrying. I'm sorry for the 1-2 effect of the MAGA hat into the slave comment, and I'm sorry for people who felt let down by that moment.
A lot of people would think that maybe this type of thing was career ending, but if anything, 2018 was one of Kanye's best years yet. Kids See Ghosts was one of his most critically acclaimed albums ever, and all the songs on Ye went platinum or higher. Pusha T's album Daytona was also critically acclaimed as one of the best albums of that year. And his song with Lil Pump did phenomenal numbers. Even though it was trash, it was huge. Again, Kanye got away with it. You could say whatever you want, but people were still bumping the music. And this simply just further encouraged his behavior. Because if Kanye could get away with this, who knows what he could get away with next? Now, once again, Kanye would take another period of time away from the internet and away from the spotlight. Now, the most unexpected twist of events, Kanye would completely dedicate himself to Christianity. Kanye found solace in the Lord and felt rebirthed in the new spiritual realm of Christianity. He started hosting these frequent Sunday services and would drop his new album, Jesus is King, a gospel hip-hop album. There was no cursing and all the songs were talking about his faith to the Lord. This was probably his worst perceived album to date. It was short, incomplete, and the songs did not really compare to his previous projects. But in the long run, this didn't really hurt his legacy because for the most part, he kept a clean slate. This was probably Kanye's most uncontroversial year to date. But this sort of changed in 2020 because this was when the election was coming up. Now, 5 years earlier, Kanye announced during the MTV Awards that he was going to run for president. A lot of people thought he wasn't going to do it, but when the time came, he was actually doing that shit. And when his first ever campaign speech happened, it had a lot of moments. But the clip that was the most notable was the one where he was crying over the fact that he might have possibly aborted his daughter. Kanye's political views at this time weren't anything too wild or unexpected coming from a Christian man who was once a Trump supporter, and this didn't really get him too much negative backlash. It was really more seen as a joke because no one was actually taking his presidential run seriously. Like, no one really thought this guy actually had a chance at office. Anyone who voted for him was doing it as a joke. And this really was the most notable moment he had for 2 years. Because once again, after this, Kanye stayed quiet. He released his highly praised album Donda with little to no controversy, and it was received very, very well. Kanye was basically back in business. But then, 2022 happened. You see, at some point in 2021, Kanye and Kim completely split ways. They had a pretty mutual split and still seemed to be on decently good terms, which was pretty mature of them. But Kim seemed to move on pretty quickly when she was the guest host of SNL and kissed Pete Davidson in a skit. It was rumored that they were possibly dating, and at first Kanye thought that Kim was only doing this to hurt him, but it was real. And of absolute frustration, Kanye dropped the song Easy with the Game where he literally dissed Pete. God save me from that crash just so I can fucking beat Pete Davidson's ass. And upon the news of this, Pete actually did hire extra security, not because Kanye was gonna do something, but because he was worried about his whack-ass fans doing something to him. Because Kanye at this point had one of the wildest fan bases in hip-hop. He basically established a cult-like audience. He was one of the most commercially successful and critically acclaimed artists of all time. He was literally considered a genius. So it made sense why Pete would react that way. And from here on out, Kanye would go on this really weird sporadic posting rant dissing Pete in all of these Instagram posts. At one point, Kanye quite literally posted telling people to scream at Pete if they saw him in real life. People thought it was a joke, but it was legit. Like, Kanye was literally losing his mind over this guy. Every single day, nonstop, he was posting about Pete. He was obsessed. It went so far that for the music video for the song Easy, he did a claymation where he literally murders Pete. Quite literally a death threat. If that's not a death threat, I don't know what is. Everyone at this time saw Kanye as pretty immature and basically acting like a 15-year-old. And around this point, Kanye dropped his worst album to date, Donda 2. This album also seemed incomplete and just very, very not focused. But the main reason why neither of these really stained Kanye's career too badly was because the Pete Davidson stuff really only seemed like celebrity gossip bullshit like usual. It wasn't nearly as bad as his 2018 phase. And Donda 2 isn't even considered like an official album because it wasn't really officially dropped on streaming services. It was like released exclusively on his STEM player website. It didn't really reach fans pretty far to where a lot of them probably don't even know about this album. It was a rough start to 2022, but nothing too bad. But then 8 months later went by because October 2022 was really the start of the end for Kanye officially. It was at that time that he posted a picture with Candace Owens with a shirt that said White Lives Matter. This seemed like a protest against Black Lives Matter, and once again, it got people riled up. It seemed like we were obviously in the start of another Kanye episode. Celebrities like Diddy spoke out against the shirt. Diddy even tried to text Kanye one-on-one about the fiasco, but Kanye wasn't listening. Diddy even tried to meet Kanye face-to-face to talk about everything, but Kanye wasn't hearing it. Until eventually Kanye would say this in a text and post it for the world. I'm gonna use you as an example to show the Jewish people that told you to call me that no one can threaten or influence me. This was a very out-of-pocket thing to say. Kanye posted this to Instagram and then was immediately suspended after because it violated community guidelines. And this was where the anti-Semitic run begins. 2 days later, Kanye would post probably one of the most out-of-pocket tweets yet. I'm a bit sleepy tonight, but when I wake up, I'm going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. The funny thing is I actually can't be anti-Semitic because black people are actually Jew. Also, you guys have toyed with me and tried to blackball anyone who ever presses your agenda. I'm not entirely sure what DEFCON specifically means, but saying that you're going DEFCON on Jewish people while capitalizing the word Jewish did not look good. Whatever that was, wasn't promising. And after this, his Twitter account was locked for obvious reasons, but this only further fueled Kanye because after this, he went on the most sporadic interview run ever. 2 days later, an unaired interview with Tucker Carlson, the host of Fox News, would leak online, and I see why it wasn't aired. For one, he says that Margaret Sanger, who was this very well-known birth control activist from the early 1900s, actually founded Planned Parenthood to work with the KKK to control Jewish people.
Planned Parenthood was made by Margaret Sanger, a known eugenics, with the KKK to control the Jew population.
But Kanye also affirms that when he says Jew, he's talking about the 12 lost tribes of Judah. And this is basically where he confirms that he is a black Hebrew Israelite.
When I say Jew, I mean the 12 lost tribes of Judah, the blood of Christ, who the race, the people known as the race black really are. This is who our people are.
Now, in case you guys don't know what that is, essentially was a movement that started in the early 1900s where African Americans thought that they were the true Israelites. They do follow typical Jewish traditions like following the Sabbath and keeping kosher, but they're not technically Jewish because they don't really consider the mainstream idea of Jews as the actual Israelites. This movement is very controversial because a lot of them have a correlation with anti-Semitic and racist ideas because that's what a lot of them typically preach. Kind of like how Kanye is. Now, it's very important to mention that not all black Hebrewites are extremists like that. Many of them do practice their own respective beliefs in peace, but it's the extremists that go very, very far and give it a very bad rep. And Kanye West is not the only rapper who is a black Hebrew Israelite. Kodak Black and Kendrick Lamar are both Hebrew Israelites themselves. The only reason why they're not controversial is because they're not saying shit like this on TV that actually causes real harm. But it's important to understand that the overall movement is not associated with good reception. Now, the very next day, Kanye would go on to film an episode of The Shop that's hosted by LeBron James. But the same day that he filmed that episode, they announced that they were not going to air it because Kanye was using hate speech and enforcing stereotypes. After talking to Kanye directly the day before we taped, I believe he was capable of a respectful discussion and he was ready to address all his recent comments. Unfortunately, he used the shop to reiterate more hate speech and extremely dangerous stereotypes. I can only imagine whatever it was he said during that time. But a controversial interview that did air was Kanye's 3.5-hour appearance on the Drink Champs podcast, where he just went completely loose. On the interview, he claims that once again he was being targeted by the Jewish people and Zionists. He also doubles down on his comments on the lost tribe of Israel. He also goes off on a rant about how George Floyd died from fentanyl and not from the police. But this video is already talking about enough controversial topics at the time, so let's just focus on one thing.
The Jewish media blocked me out. This shit lit, right? I'm lit, right? I'm lit.
This whole entire interview ended up getting removed off of YouTube because of just how controversial and out of pocket it was, which I'm assuming is not a surprise. And he just did not stop from there. That same fucking day, Kanye did an interview with River Cuomo, and it was here that he said what he meant by DEFCON 3 was the fact that he would sign to Jewish labels and then they would own black people, and how Jews take up most of the industry, so if you have a bad opinion on Jews and your career is done. And again, he was defending that it wasn't hate speech.
When I wore the White Lives Matter t-shirt, the Jewish underground media mafia already started attacking me. They canceled my 4 SoFi Stadium shows.
There is no Jewish media cabal mafia. That is a figment of either your imagination or a projection of a prejudice, okay? You may have had bad business dealings with people. It's about those people. It's not about their religion or faith. And I know that you are intelligent and understand that when you target people because of their faith, other people may do so the same. They've been targeted before. They've been abused and killed because of what they believe and who they are. So we don't want to tolerate that. And you're playing into that right now, whether you know that or not.
I won't tolerate it as a black person. What you just said was a statement. You're trying to say that there isn't a collective. Over 50% of the executives in Hollywood, the CEOs, are Jewish. And these guys know each other.
That's different than saying it's a mafia and that they act as Jews in some way, as opposed to just being businessmen. One plays to a prejudice, the other one just plays to people and an ugly business, which is what the record business in.
Kanye didn't seem to have a genuine understanding as to why the shit he was saying was enforcing harmful stereotypes. He genuinely believed that this shit was true. 2 days later, he did an interview with Piers Morgan, and it goes exactly as well as you think it would.
And the owners of the record labels, and we're gonna put them all in one room, and we're gonna read let's go top 10 in each one of these categories, right? Let's read Michael B. Jordan's
contract. Okay, but why would any of that?
Hey, bro, I ain't finished. I ain't finished my sentence.
Nothing you're saying has anything to do with regret.
Hey, boy.
Don't call me boy.
Don't finish. I told you. Oh, don't treat me like a boy then. I'm going to finish my sentence of my idea.
Nothing you're saying has got anything to do with the tweet.
Cool. Bro, I was in the middle of a sentence, boy. Okay, so are you going to allow me to finish my sentence?
Yes.
Come to find out, none of this shit was new at all. Because when all this was coming out, people were coming out with the signs that they've seen in Kanye before. A reporter from CNN talked about how Kanye had a very disturbing fascination with Hitler, that Kanye was frequently reading his biography and actually wanted the album Ye to be named after Hitler. Podcast host Van Lathan Jr. actually shared how he had to scrap an interview with Kanye back in 2018 because he straight up said that he loves Nazis and Hitler. This one single week felt like an eternity, and it did so much damage. Radios were playing his song less, Balenciaga and Adidas cut ties with him. He got dropped by his own agency. Some of his business partners completely cut ties with him, and a documentary that was being made on him was entirely scrapped. Gap and Foot Locker stopped selling his products, and even his law firm dropped him. I mean, that last one isn't surprising. If you know, you know. People like Kim Kardashian, UMG, and the CEO of Spotify were all speaking out against Kanye's statements. Losing a bunch of this business, Kanye's net worth dropped by nearly $400 million, which basically took him out of the billionaire status. And on October 26, Kanye showed up to the Skechers building unannounced and had to be escorted out of the building. happening. You see, this was good and bad. See, on one hand, Kanye was receiving the deserved consequences of his actions, but at the same time, this was only proving him right mentally. Like, Kanye really believed that if you spoke out against the Jews in the media, that you were gonna get punished and lose your career. I'm not saying that he is right, I'm just simply saying that it's not proving him wrong by essentially ruining his career. In terms of psychology, it clearly was not going to change his opinion on anything. Like, let's be honest here. And clearly he didn't, because 1 month later, Kanye was having dinner with both Nick Fuentes and Donald Trump. If you don't know who Nick Fuentes is, well, good for you. He's one of the most controversial political personalities on the internet with views that are seen as very white nationalist, anti-Semitic, and misogynistic. He's a Holocaust denier, he doesn't really seem to believe in gender equality, and a bunch of just wild stuff. He's banned off almost like every single social media, so I think even like quoting him would get this video removed, but you get the idea. Except Twitter, of course. Thanks, Elon. So as you can imagine, this dinner really is as controversial as it gets, and it got media attention everywhere. Joe Biden himself even spoke out against this. Our political leaders should be calling out and rejecting anti-Semitism wherever it hides. Now, what those three talked about, I don't want to know. And a couple days later, Kanye had the bright idea of doing another interview where he spilled a bunch of more anti-Semitic gibberish bullshit. This was on Tim Pool's podcast where Nick Fuentes actually joined him. Kanye went so far as to compare himself to MLK and Malcolm X. And when Tim Pool didn't entertain Kanye and Nick Fuentes' conspiracy theories, he just straight up walked out, which is pretty immature, but honestly probably a good thing because we didn't have to hear any more of that bullshit. But the worst one and the most infamous one was when he was on Alex Jones's Infowars, and he said the one quote that everyone heard.
I see good things about Hitler also. The Jew, I love everyone. I'm done with the classifications. Every human being has something of value that they brought to the table, especially Hitler.
Kanye would start to praise Hitler, saying that he's a Nazi, saying that he needs to start being nicer to Nazis, denying the Holocaust, saying that the Jews control the bank. You know, it's a wild interview when Alex Jones is seen as the normal guy. This interview went crazy everywhere, and this is where people completely lost their shit. And literally right after this interview, Kanye straight up posted a symbol on his Twitter of a swastika inside of the Star of David. This counted as hate speech, and Elon finally banned him off Twitter. It couldn't possibly get any worse than this, right? Oh boy. 5 days later, Kanye did another interview with Gavin McGeans and basically went on another rant, talking about how Jewish people should forgive Hitler, how Jewish people have China scared, and compared abortion to the Holocaust. The Holocaust is not only the Holocaust. So for them to take that and claim that we have abortions right now, that's eugenics, that's genocide, that's a Holocaust that we're dealing with right now. The backlash from this was indescribable. Kanye really crossed the line. There's really nothing worse than you can say about praising the man who killed 6 million Jews. Like seriously, where else can you go from beyond that? Thankfully, the interview with Infowars was completely removed off YouTube, and so did any repost of it. His honorary degree was taken back. He was banned from Clubhouse. He was deemed anti-Semite of the year, and he was also clowned at the Golden Globe Awards. At this point, no one wants to be around this guy. There was even a proposal for him to get banned in Australia. After this, Kanye's Reddit was flooded with Taylor Swift praise and Holocaust education after all of this shit. And a tattoo studio even offered to remove Kanye tattoos for free. And his lawyers were literally planning to run a newspaper where they announced that they dropped him. Like, it was going that far. This did horrendous damage to Kanye so much of the time that he quite literally was almost on the verge of bankruptcy. But I'm gonna get to that in a minute. The thing about Kanye's rants is that it did have negative effects on people and have a very bad influence. A lot of people could easily dismiss it as Kanye being off the meds and being bipolar, but this did have real repercussions on people because it did inspire a lot of anti-Semitic activities. A few days later, after all of this shit, the neo-Nazi Goyim in Los Angeles held up a poster that said that Kanye was right. And there were so many anti-Semitic campaigns that spiraled after this. All across America, at colleges, temples, Jewish cemeteries, airports, there were a ton of graffiti that was inspired by Kanye. People were vandalizing properties by saying that Kanye was right, followed up with other sentences like kill all the Jews. You can't say that Kanye did not inspire any actual hate because he did. This has real damage on people. The stereotypes of Jews being money hungry, greedy, and controlling the media is something that has actually gone on for hundreds of years. The whole idea that Jews were money hungry quite literally started in Christian Europe. Jews had very little job opportunities because of the government at the time. All the jobs at the time were taken by Christians and non-Jewish people. So Jews went into money lending because it was the only job that they were able to do that was not taken. Christians were not really allowed to lend money and add interest because it went against their religion, but under the Torah, it didn't really exclude Jews from doing that. So Jews went into money lending, tax collecting, and renting properties because it was literally the only fucking thing they could do to feed their families. This essentially made Jews the necessary evil of Europe. And by the way, I'm not trying to make Christians look bad or anything. Christians are not evil. This is simply just how the government was run back in the day. Like, I'm just telling the story. And this also continued for quite a long time because famous authors like Shakespeare and Charles Dickens depicted Jews in a very negative manner, so that did not help us. But what really fueled the idea that Jews were controlling the media was this book in 1999, The Protocols of the Elders of Zion. This book talked about how there was a giant secret meeting of Jewish people to take over the world by controlling the banks and controlling the media and manipulating the government, all that stuff. But the thing was, that just simply did not happen. There was no secret fucking meeting. It was literally disproven by so many media sources, and the book was proven to be plagiarized a lot. Yet people really thought this stupid fucking book was real. This one fucking book caused such an insane domino effect because it's quite literally what inspired Hitler to make his first ever anti-Jew speech that year. This book heavily influenced the Nazi regime and at one point was actually required in schools for kids to read. Hitler took reign of Germany after World War I when they were experiencing a Great Depression and basically was able to convince the entire country that the Jews were the problem. He claims that the Jews stabbed them in the back during World War I and forced them to surrender, that they controlled the banks and caused hyperinflation, that they controlled the media to spread anti-German propaganda, and that they controlled capitalism. None of that shit was true. There's so many sources that disprove all of this shit. Germany lost World War I because it did not have a strong enough military and didn't have the resources to win. In fact, over 100,000 Jews literally fought for Germany during that war. Now, Jews did have a noticeable presence in Germany's banks, but they did not own the majority of the banking industry. The majority of the banking industry was owned by non-Jews. They didn't cause hyperinflation. The fucking government did that because in the 1920s, their mindset was like, oh wow, people don't have money. We should just print more money. That'll solve the problem. And the Great Depression that Germany experienced was because of the stock crash market in the US in 1929. Again, not connected to Jews. The Jews did not own any of the German media. And the Jewish media that did exist in Germany was very pro-German and anti-communist, despite what Hitler was preaching. And even the main leaders that were behind communism at the time, like Lenin and Stalin, were not Jewish. But regardless, people really still believed exactly what Hitler said. Then this started World War II and the Holocaust, and you know how that shit goes. But even then, these conspiracies still spread and are very active today. There's always this narrative that there's a giant insider Jewish network and that the only way people can be successful is to be Jewish, because somehow it always connects to the Jews. Nowadays, people look at big famous influences like the Rothschilds and assume that they control the whole world because of all the power and money that they have. Now, I'll talk about those guys in another video because that's a pretty interesting deep dive. So let me know if you want me to talk about that. Now listen, I won't lie, it is true that Jews on average are very successful in Hollywood and journalism, medicine, law, and all that good stuff. But being successful in a field does not mean that you control it. I mean, some of the biggest media owners ever, like Jeff Bezos, David Zaslav, Bob Iger, aren't Jewish. From a study in 1992, 50% of all the CEOs in America were Jewish. Yeah, a noticeable percent, but pretty small percent if you actually look at it. But this also does not mean that Jews aren't successful on average. They are. From a 2021 study, it was found that 23% of Jewish households on average earn about $200K a year compared to the average 4%. From a 2015 study, it was found that 1.7% of all millionaires were Jewish. 1.7 isn't as controlling as it sounds, does it? Now, Jews tend to be very successful and make good money, but it's not on some Illuminati shit. It's because we have a very good culture that encourages strong morals, the sharing of wisdom, supporting each other's business, and overall just being there for each other. Judaism teaches us that charity, acts of kindness, and overall compassion are not just about being good, it's a moral obligation. Judaism preaches the values of honest business by keeping promises and fair trade. Jews are very successful on average because we have a very enriching culture that passes on to future generations. We have a beautiful and enriching community that inspires each other to achieve greatness in this world. And that's not something I, nor any Jewish person, should ever feel ashamed about. It's something to be proud of. Our culture is not about tearing other people down, it's about bringing other people up with us. And I kind of feel like this needs to be said, but Hitler did not like black people at all. In his book, he literally talked about how white people were contaminating the white race in its purity. And he thought that there were too many black people in France. You know, the country that he invaded. Nazis did kill and target black people, not nearly to the extent of Jews, but he did target them. And it's not for certain how many black people he killed because it wasn't as systematic, but it was at least 2,000. On top of that, he also went against Russians, gypsies, gay people, just to give you an idea of why Kanye's support is so random and out of pocket, but that's enough for the side lesson. Now, after Kanye's episode, he did go silent for a couple of months, but then came back in the most random way 3 months later. Because out of nowhere, he posted that he now liked Jewish people because of Jonah Hill. Watching Jonah Hill in 21 Jump Street made me like Jewish people again. No one should take anger against one or two individuals and transform that into hatred towards millions of innocent people. No Christian can be labeled anti-Semite knowing Jesus is Jew. Thank you, Jonah Hill. I love you. This was so random, so funny, and people actually believed it. But this whole post was enough to genuinely convince people that Kanye somehow changed. And after a long, much needed silence of Kanye, he actually would come back to post an official apology on his Instagram. He posted this one message in Hebrew where he basically basically took back everything he said. It really made people think that he changed his mind and that he just had a really bad mental breakdown. It's interesting because Kanye rarely ever apologizes for things that he says, like even when he is proven wrong. There was even this rumor that Kanye West filmed this whole hour-long apology to the Jewish people, but that never really came out. How authentic this apology was at the time was uncertain. It seemed minimalistic, and he never really followed up on this. Because when he hated the Jews, he was doing tons of interviews and really going off about why he despised them. But when it's time to apologize, we get one cryptic, minimalistic Instagram post. No follow-ups on social media, no interviews about this, no nothing. So did he really mean it? Well, a year later, we basically found out that it wasn't authentic at all. And the only reason why he probably even did this was because he was on the verge of bankruptcy. Now, like I said before, this whole incident made him lose out on his deal with Adidas, hence why he was no longer a billionaire in the first place. Kanye was literally 2 months away from having to declare bankruptcy, but what oddly saved him was this commercial.
Hey y'all, this Ye, and this my commercial. And since we spent all the money on the commercial spot, we actually didn't spend any money on the actual commercial. But the idea is, I want you to go to Yeezy.com, YEEZY.com, and I'm gonna write it at the bottom of the screen, and I got some shoes, and that's it.
Yes, this commercial that Kanye shot on his fucking iPhone saved his business. This commercial went very viral because of just how funny it was. You're so used to these companies spending millions of dollars to get celebrities and having all of these crazy effects in production, and then Kanye just comes in with a fucking phone. On top of the fact that it costs millions of dollars just to insert your commercial into the Super Bowl. The ironic part is that Kanye wasn't really joking when he said that he spent all of the money simply just on the commercial placement, because he really did. People thought it was some type of joke, but Kanye was really betting all of the money on this one commercial to save the Yeezy brand. And it worked because the total amount of sales from just this commercial alone were $20 million. Or they were close to $20 million. Now, how much that actually was in profit, because the clothes literally costed like $20 a pop. This was a year after the controversy happened, and at this point, people just completely forgot about it. Everyone was just waiting for the new album, which he announced with Ty Dolla $ign, Vultures. Now, Kanye and Ty Dolla $ign held a rave for this album on December 15th of 2023. After the party, Kanye went on a giant rant about Jews, Hitler, and how people didn't support him during his hard times and stuff.
And I don't want to hear shit from none of these Jewish niggas talking about, oh, he's in an episode. Y'all niggas saw this shit. Don't tell me about my fucking political opinion. I made more money to show you that money ain't nothing. It's our money, nigga. It's our country, nigga. It's I ain't stolen from it. It's pyramids, nigga. It's pyramids in St. Louis, nigga, in Missouri. They stole it. All this shit. America just the latest bitch that been ran through so many times. The Greeks hit her. Mansa Musa hit her. We had her. The Indians and shit. The motherfucking pilgrims. It's the Jewish niggas. They dress the same, nigga. It's the same shit. That's the story. They put us in the school. The Rothschilds. I know Jay-Z back here like, oh, this nigga gonna die now. Who make the hospitals, though? Who got the hospitals? These are Zionists, nigga. This is what I'm trying to tell you. Jesus Christ, Hitler, yay. Third party. Sponsor that, nigga. Yeah. Bring the sponsorships to that.
It's apparent that Kanye still held his beliefs, but he didn't say anything that was too out of line or really was anything crazier than what he said before. And this went viral for like one day, but it was overshadowed by the hype of the album that was dropping. To most people, it was just another Kanye rant. And when the album dropped, it was filled to the brim with references to Jews. Like on the lead single, he literally said, "How can I be anti-Semitic? I just fucked a Jewish bitch." Pretty out of pocket, but not like nearly as bad as like on the final song where he literally bragged about being anti-Semitic and got away with it, because in a way it kind of did. Everyone forgot about the drama. And the most popular song on the album, Carnival, originally did have an anti-Semitic lyric to it before he changed it last minute. Got my kids in a fake school, we ain't Jewish. He took the word Jewish out of there, and when you listen to the song, he clearly takes out one of the words before the chorus hits. And that song ended up going #1 on Billboard. So Kanye was basically right back to business. Even though this album was not crazy well received, the overall project did perform really well. And if this wasn't enough to prove they didn't change, literally right around the time the album dropped, he literally admitted to a reporter that he meant everything he said the last year. So it was pretty obvious that Kanye never meant his last apology. He still held all of his beliefs and everything.
Do you take back any of the anti-Semitic stuff you might have said?
Black people can't be anti-Semitic. We are Jew.
I mean, just like calling DEFCON on Jews and that sort. Like, do you take back any of that sort of more extreme stuff?
You know what? For all the kids that love me, all the Jewish kids that love me, I'm sorry if y'all had to hear a grown-up conversation with us screaming at each other. But we got to a point where something needed to happen.
He only said sorry to basically get himself out of bankruptcy and basically to keep his career going. He was dropping clothes, dropping music, and basically was giving the people exactly what they wanted, so everyone forgot. He got away with it again. And I won't lie, it's not like as if I didn't forget about it at this point either. Like, Carnival was my #1 most played song of 2024, which is like really embarrassing because I know most Kanye fans hate this song, and honestly, it's far from his best work. It just goes really, really hard on the treadmill. But looking back, I did not even realize just how harmful this really was up until now, because it's basically only further encouraged his behavior. We were giving him a platform and giving him his money back, so of course he felt invincible just like every other time before. So why would he take back what he said? 2024 as a whole was a very noticeable change in Kanye's mind and mood, and obviously not for the good, because this was around the time when Kanye started heavily using nitrous oxide. His employees and the people close to him said that he was using it during meetings, and it was getting really, really bad. Ryan Garcia even posted a video that Kanye sent to him of him being on the nitrous, and it was around this time that Kanye even dropped the sequel to Vultures 1, Vultures 2, which also had more Jewish references. I mean, this shouldn't be a surprise. But this album was literally Kanye's worst project yet. It sounded incomplete, the songs had horrible structure, Kanye was just not energetic on any of these songs, and he literally was using AI for some parts of it. It was starting to go beyond just Kanye having a bad album. It seemed like it was a real reflection of his deteriorating state of mind. The people around him were clearly not in his best interests at all. And like, even outside of the music, Kanye just seemed like as if he was mentally deteriorating. His beard wasn't groomed, he always seemed so tired, like he just really was not in good shape. Like, he really seemed like he was going down a pretty bad spiral. But the anti-Semitic shit just kept on coming. Now, after both Vulture albums came out, Kanye posted a screenshot to Instagram of a text conversation between his manager. Now, Kanye's manager told him that Atlantic Records was going to take down both Vulture albums if he didn't give them 40% of the proceeds. And Kanye had this to say: "This is what they do to independent artists." Now, it's pretty obvious that Kanye refers to Jews in this because of the way that he uses the word they. In podcasts before, he's used the word they to refer to Jews. I mean, come on, it doesn't take Sherlock Holmes to know that he's clearly talking about Jewish people. And the head of Atlantic Records is Elliot Grange, who is Jewish. Once again, trying to spin the whole narrative that Jews are controlling the record label and trying to control him. And obviously, this didn't really get a lot of backlash or anything at the time because it was nothing new. At this point, people were just kind of starting to feel bad for Kanye, including me, honestly. Like, there was genuine concern about his health. Like, people were starting to wonder if he was going to live for another couple years at this point. Now, whether Kanye kept on using the nitrous or not is pretty unknown still. But by the start of 2025, Kanye seemed to have a much better state of mind. He was a lot more well-groomed, and there wasn't nearly as much talk of him using nitrous. His wife was still dressing borderline naked in public, but for the most part, it seemed like he was doing a lot healthier. But around this time, Kanye was teasing his new album Bully, which didn't really have that much hype, honestly. Kanye's last project essentially left a giant stain on his discography, and fans were starting to wonder if he really could still make any good music at this point. But it was then that Kanye had the worst meltdown yet. The meltdown of all meltdowns. The one that outdid anything he has done and said before. This came right after Kanye showed up uninvited to the Grammy Awards with his wife. Quite literally came dressed naked. Like, she literally was like just not wearing clothes. Like, I have no idea how this doesn't count as like public indecency. This alone already caused quite a lot of ruckus, and Kanye would be pretty quick to come back to Twitter and let people know what he was thinking. "I have dominion over my wife. She's with a billionaire. She wouldn't have been able to do it without my approval." And this is basically what started the ultimate meltdown from Kanye. "I'm racist. Stereotypes exist for a reason, and they all be true. I'm buying 2 Maybachs tomorrow. I'm gonna make the Jewish person who's selling it to me read all these tweets, and I bet you see me whipping Maybachs. I'm never apologizing for my Jewish comments. I could say whatever the fuck I want to say forever. Where's my fucking apology for freezing my account? Suck my dick. How's that for an apology? Be clear, you Jewish fellas don't run me no more. This is a free country, and this is my free opinion. You abort black children for stem cells. Abortion is murder, and it's pushed onto the black and Latino communities. Any Jewish person that does business with me needs to know I don't trust or like any Jewish person, and this is completely sober with no Hennessy. Some of my best friends are Jewish, and I don't trust any of them. Elon stole my Nazi swag at the inauguration. I'm a Nazi. I love Hitler. Now what, bitches? Free Puff. Donald Trump, please free my brother Puff. My support of Puff is completely selfish. I need to find whoever been trying to out black moguls." He was saying anything and everything possible, going against the Jewish people, supporting Diddy, and reiterating how slavery was a choice. Kanye was pulling all the strings here. To make things worse, he literally dropped Diddy merch on his website. And in case you guys forgot, which I doubt you did, Diddy was arrested for so many counts of sex trafficking and assault and a lot of stuff. So to just casually come out and defend him when he himself has daughters is just beyond messed up. And boy oh boy, it just gets worse. You see, Kanye did this right before the Super Bowl, like 2 days before, where he already had another ad prepared. And this ad was just like his last one.
So what's up, guys?
I spent like all the money for the commercial on these new teeth. So once again, I had to shoot it on the iPhone. Go to Yeezy.com.
It was meant to promote his upcoming album where he had a pre-order on his website with a bunch of clothes and stuff. But right after the airing of this commercial, Kanye swiped all of the merchandise off of his website and put only one product on his website, and that was a shirt that had a swastika on it. So essentially, over 100 million people just saw an advertisement to buy swastika merch. And there's definitely a lot of people who bought this shit. Shopify would take the website down, but only after the shirt sold out. On top of this, Kanye was hit with a lawsuit by a former employee for misogyny and anti-Semitism. The woman worked for Yeezy and claimed that Kanye had a calculated campaign to threaten and psychologically torment women and Jewish individuals around him. She claims Kanye would straight up send her texts like, "Welcome to the first day of working for Hitler, hail Hitler." And throughout this video right here, you're gonna notice the theme of Kanye getting away with this time and time and time again. He got away with the Taylor incident. He got away with the Bill Cosby incident. He got away with the first Hitler incident. He got away with the slavery is a choice incident. And unfortunately, he might get away with this one too. Now, there has been repercussions for all of this crap, don't get me wrong. On top of all the celebrities criticizing him, the online backlash, and losing out business, Kanye has lost out on a lot of shit. Now, Kanye's fellow collaborators and industry friends like Tyler the Creator and Travis Scott have unfollowed him on Twitter, and Ty Dolla $ign, who is one of the people who still frequently worked with Kanye, completely cleared his Instagram of any Vultures affiliation while also posting something on his Instagram story completely condemning any hate speech. Pretty smart move. Even though he also still just dropped a song with Kanye that he was still promoting. I know people are saying that Kanye is completely done for and that he won't come back from this one, but the thing is, I kind of think that there is a chance that he still might slightly come back. But at the same time, Kanye's career is actually going into a dead end at this point. And the reason why I think that is not because of things he says, but really more because of the actual quality of music. For such a long time, we've heard the term separate the art from the artist. We have listened to music by artists that low-key we know are not really great people, but we think their music is pretty good. Like XXXTentacion Chord or Chris Brown. For Kanye fans, this phrase is more abused than a son who has an alcoholic stepdad. For so long, fans tolerated his outbursts because of the music. They did not support it. But now the outbursts are getting a lot more extreme and the quality of the music is slowly decreasing. And personally, it's to the point where I, as a fan, no longer can separate the art from the artists. I'll never forget when I went to the Holocaust Remembrance Center in Israel. It was a very emotional experience. There's collages of the propaganda that Nazis used to make Jews look evil. There's multiple exhibits, videos, and pictures, and even sculptures of the horrendous things that Nazis were doing to Jews. They didn't just want the Jews to die, they wanted them to suffer. They wanted them to feel as much pain as possible for as long as possible. They weren't treated as humans, they were treated less than nothing. It brought out an emotion of me just looking at the pictures of these children who essentially were so malnourished that they were literally more bone than skin. You can see in their eyes they knew what was going to happen to them. And it's impossible for us to really truly comprehend the fact that it happened to 6 million people. 6 fucking million people. And as humans, it's literally impossible for us to fathom a number that big. And the fact that this happened to my ancestors, my fucking ancestors, is something that I think about almost every single day now. And to see Kanye, one of my favorite rappers, praise the man who was behind it all makes me sick to my fucking stomach. Because at this point now, whenever I listen to his music, that's all I genuinely can think about. Some people might think it's dramatic, but I don't really give a shit. Now, if you as a person continue to listen to Kanye, I genuinely will not judge you. If I see you listening to him, I'm not gonna walk up to you and call you a Nazi supporter or any of that shit. If they play his music at like a store or something, I'm not gonna like call up the manager and demand they stop playing the music. Or if I'm at a party and some of his songs come on, I'll probably still sing along to it. I don't think you need to genuinely stop listening to the music. I just want you to understand what you are enabling. The only thing that I would prefer is for people to stop financially supporting him. Now, I know I don't beat the Jewish stereotypes by asking that, but it genuinely is what I feel. Because when he gets financially rewarded that he feels like it's okay to act like this. But I will say this, if you really bought his stupid fucking shirt, you're a clown. Like, I know some people probably bought this as a joke, but you are literally financially supporting this bullshit. Like, come on, guys. So the question is, will Kanye's career move forward? I hate to say it, but that will really depend on the quality of his next album. I know he recently went on Twitter and said that he's no longer a supporter or whatever, but if you learned anything from last time, you know he definitely does not mean that shit. What's gonna happen is that a couple months will go by, he's gonna be silent, and then he's gonna hype up this album, and most likely a lot of people are gonna forget what happened. And the cycle is just gonna repeat. Kanye has connections and probably still still always will. Like recently I saw a video of him in the studio for his next album with Cardi, Peso Pluma, The Game, and some other rappers for his upcoming album after all of the Nazi shit. I still can't see his fans not getting some type of hype for this next album. But at the same time, his music has also been taking a noticeable downgrade. Even without the Hitler shit, Kanye's demise starts and ends with the music. Because he's just that popular. If Kanye's career truly ends, it's because his music was trash, not because of something he said. If Kanye genuinely dropped another album that was at the hype of Dark Twisted Fantasy, I really do think most people, almost anyone, would basically forget everything that happened. But if he drops another Vultures 2, that's where it ends. Kanye has completely lost his creative touch and basically has become more and more dependent on AI, which in turn has made his music a lot more soulless. His heart just clearly is not in this shit anymore. In 5 years, Kanye is going to be at a very bad place in time with both his music and his mental health. He's not going to be getting the hype for albums anymore. He's not going to be getting the publicity that he once got, and overall, he's going to be very different. And I don't say this with glee, because all of it is self-inflicted.